It's Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley today, and we are joined by Laura Friedman. She is a councilwoman in Glendale, but she is now a nominee for the California State Assembly. She recently came in first for the 43rd Assembly District, which includes what?
The 43rd is Glendale, Burbank, La Cañada, Flint Ridge, La Crescenta, and then the Los Angeles neighborhoods of, you ready? You writing this down?
I am.
Okay,
Got it.
good.
Go.
Atwater, Los Feliz, Beechwood Canyon, Franklin Hills, East Hollywood, and part of Silver Lake.
What a great district.
It's a great district.
It's incredibly diverse with a lot of important industry to this entire region.
Yep.
Tell us what you learned in campaigning throughout the various neighborhoods.
Right. I learned that the district is made up of a series of neighborhoods that have a very strong identity, that understand what they're about. They all have different concerns. They all have a lot of them have different demographics and different political views, which makes it a really interesting place to campaign in. But these are people who often are longtime residents, who have very strong ties to their community, who have a very strong sense of neighborhood and community, and who care a lot about their area and care a lot about California. And it's also a very knowledgeable group of residents, I found.
Were there certain themes that permeated as you were walking amongst those different unique neighborhoods?
Well, because this election is tied to the presidential election, sometimes it was hard to get people to think about state issues or local issues versus national issues. So people were concerned about what's happening in California, but they also wanted to know my views about the presidential election, about national politics.
I mean, you're running as a Democrat, so people know that.
Right. I would say that I would try to make people understand what the legislature does and why that's important to their life. As important, and in some ways more important than what happens in the federal government, because those state decisions have such a direct impact on people's quality of life.
I am so glad you said that, because I do not believe that many of us realize that we are much more impacted day in and day out by Sacramento than by Washington, D.C. And yet you wouldn't know it when you watch the news, when you read a newspaper. It's so focused on the national government.
That's right.
Yet day in and day out. I mean, if anything, one could argue even Glendale has a bigger impact on the residents of Glendale than in Washington, D.C.
Absolutely. Those local issues are really huge for people in terms of how they live every day. The experience that they have on their block, in their neighborhood, with their child's school, those are all local decisions. So explaining to people what the state does and how it impacts their life, sometimes I would see a light bulb go off in people's head. They would just say, wow, the things that I really care about right now are coming, those policies are coming from Sacramento or from my local government. And so it was a great educational experience for me, but also I think for the people that I talked to.
I want to ask about your success. You came in first out of 9 people. You got a third of the vote. That's very impressive when 9 are in the race. And you did particularly well outside of your home base, outside of Glendale. What went right there? I mean, I know it's hard to figure out, but I'm sure you've done some analysis.
Well, you need one of those CNN pundits, I think, to really take this
should I get
apart.
the board up?
We did well in Glendale, but my primary opponent, and the opponent that I'm going to be running against, is also a Glendale-based elected official. So the reason that we split Glendale was because I was running against someone who was well-known in Glendale. And then outside of Glendale, I think that the voters responded to a couple of things. They responded, first of all, to the fact that I have a record of accomplishments because I've been a city council member for 7 years. So I was able to talk about things that I've actually done and issues that I've addressed. And people respond to that. They understand that anybody can tell them things that they want to do, and anybody can sort of decide what someone wants to hear and feed that back to them. But when you have someone whose record shows the kind of politician that they are and what kind of policies they're interested in, that's very powerful for people.
And one could argue you have been on the council in Glendale during some tough times.
During some really tough times. And I was going to say the other thing that people responded to was that I've also been very active regionally. And I sit on a lot of boards and commissions that are policy-making boards for the region. So being on the board of the Metropolitan Water District for 7 years, when water issues and the drought are so hugely important in the area is something that people resonated with people because they know that I have knowledge about that issue. And when I talk to them about the issue, they would say, wow, your knowledge is deep. It's not just the shallow, hey, we need to have more local sources of water, but I could really talk to them about the finances, about where water comes from, about what we're doing now, what we need to do. And that's one example. I've also been involved with the Independent Cities Association, which primarily deals with law enforcement and public safety. And that's a big concern to people as well. So being able to talk to them about the work that I've done dealing with realignment, with Proposition 47, with all of those issues that people are concerned about, knowing that I've taken a leadership role in those issues was also important to people. I
wanted to ask you about another regional issue,
Sure.
and that is the question of housing and homelessness. In portions of your district,
right.
homelessness is a significant challenge. LA County generally is facing a homeless crisis.
Right.
We have close to 50,000 individuals that are homeless. This is a number we have never seen. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are about how our region can address the homeless crisis, because you can sense, I mean, in Sacramento they're talking about discussions about county proposals to raise money, city proposals to raise money.
How much time do we have left?
Exactly. I hear you, Madam Friedman.
So in the Los Angeles portion of the district, that was definitely the number one issue. That was the issue that came up at every doorstep, that came up in every living room that I was in. It's going to have to be a very multifaceted approach.
Let me ask you, if I may.
Sure.
When it came up, did it come up with a sense of anger, or a sense of compassion, or a sense of fear? All of the above? None of the above?
I would say that for people who are homeowners, it was with a deep sense of compassion.
Oh, really?
Deep sense. People are very, very worried about people that they see as being people in their community that are homeless.
Interesting.
And it was never with a sense of anger. Not towards the homeless people. Sometimes towards local officials.
Oh, I hear you on that.
But never towards the
Right.
homeless. It was such an incredible sense of caring, and people wanted to know what they could do as well. So that was very interesting.
Unique to your district,
well,
somewhat unique.
I don't know. And then for renters, there was also a sense of fear because a lot of renters, even people in rent-controlled apartments, because of what's been happening with the Ellis Act and evictions, people are very worried about losing the place that they have lived in.
Well, let's talk about renters because it plays into the question of homelessness.
Right.
We know that in LA County, the vacancy rate is under 3%. And we know when you talk about the Ellis Act, that essentially sets parameters for when an apartment can be pulled off the market.
Right.
But people are pulling them off for a variety of reasons, Airbnb being one of them, even though that's not permissible. But you have low vacancy, you have Airbnb, you also have landlords that are afraid to rent to the homeless because there's Section 8 vouchers. So where do we go?
I think we're seeing a perfect storm of a lot of different
Right.
causes. For one thing, over the years, the federal government's community development block grant program has been cut back significantly. And people don't realize, but that was a large source of funding for the homeless, for community services that kept people off the streets, for drug treatment programs, for mental health treatment dollars, for money that went into teaching people job skills, language skills, all kinds of things that help people succeed. Also, directly, it was money that directly went into housing. That money's been cut back 40–50% over the years, maybe even more than that. So that's a huge source of funding that's been taken away from cities and really stifling their ability to deal with that population. Then we have redevelopment, which was a large source of money that went into creating affordable housing. So, and then you have that at a time when land use zoning rules have also made it difficult to build new apartment buildings, for better or for worse.
Right.
And I'm not saying that was
and
wrong.
And the governor is looking into that.
Right, but we also have had a situation where for years people wanted to build single family houses because that's where a lot of money was, but they haven't been building as many apartment buildings.
You'll come back.
And
We'll talk more.
Okay.
You'll come back, I promise. Her name is Laura Friedman. She's a nominee for the California State Assembly. I'm Brad Pomerance, Charter Local Edition.